Memory systems. Memory systems include sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. In this video, we will learn sensory memory. Throughout our lives, we absorb a tremendous amount of information via our senses. Since it is impossible to permanently register each and every impression we have captured, our sensory memory registers a brief snapshot of our environment. It allows us to process and make sense of the vast amount of sensory information that bombards our senses each day. So before going to the details, please remember to subscribe this channel. Please do watch other videos in this channel and share it with students and those who love learning psychology. Thank you. Sensory memory. It refers to the brief storage of sensory information. It is a memory buffer and it lasts only very brief time. And then either it is attended to and passed on for more processing or it is forgotten. The purpose of this sensory memory is to give the brain some time to process the incoming sensation and to allow us to see the world as an unbroken stream of events. Sensory memory can be divided into several subtypes, and each of these plays a unique role in the processing and storage of sensory information. The various subtypes of sensory memory are haptic, echoic, iconic, olfactory, and gustatory. We will see each of these in detail. First one is iconic memory. The visual sensory memory. It is known as the iconic memory. It refers to the memory that is created through vision or sight. It was first studied by the psychologist George Sperling in 1960. In his research, he showed the participants a display of letters like in this image. The display lasted only about 50 milliseconds, that is 1/20th of a second. And the participants were asked to name all the letters they could remember. On average, the participants could remember only about 1/4 of the letters they had seen. The iconic memory is a type of sensory memory that is responsible for temporary storage and processing of the visual information. It only lasts for a brief moment, typically about half second, before being either forgotten or transferred to another type of memory. The iconic memory is believed to be responsible for the persistence of visual information in the absence of visual stimulation. So, like in the example, the image has shown and just only for 50 milliseconds, right? Then, without that stimulation or without seeing that, the participants were asked to recall the letters they have seen. So, without any visual stimulation, some visual information is present, and such the persistence of an after image. It is the iconic memory. It is believed to be involved in the process of visual attention, allowing the brain to selectively attend to certain stimuli and ignore the others. So many information are coming and it attend only few and other is ignored. The important one is attended and the other information are ignored. An example of iconic memory is the after image that you see after staring at a bright light and then closing your eyes. Even after closing your eyes, you will see for a very little time the bright light. The after image, that is the example of iconic memory. The after image is the result of the persistence of the visual image in your iconic memory. So the bright light is stored in your iconic memory. That's why you see the visual image even after your eyes are closed. Next is echoic memory. It is a type of sensory memory that is responsible for the temporary storage and processing of auditory information. It is called echoic memory because it is similar to an echo that lingers after a sound is produced. The echoic memory allows the brain to briefly store and process auditory information. It can be used to support more complex and cognitive process. An example of the echoic memory is when someone asks you a question and you ask them to repeat themselves, but then you suddenly realize the answer because the question was already processed. When the first time you heard the question, it was already processed in your echoic memory. So you would be able to answer it before they repeat it for the second time. The echoic memory can also be useful in situations where a person is multitasking. For example, when listening to music while doing something else. Even if you are not actively paying attention to the music, your echoic memory, it will store the sound and can bring them to your attention if something interesting or unusual happens in the music. The echoic memory is typically short-lived and can hold information for a few seconds. Like the iconic memory, this is also either forgotten or transferred to another type of memory. So the attended information is transferred to the another type of memory or it is forgotten. Next is haptic memory. It is related to touch. So we have seen the visual, the auditory, and now it's related to the touch, haptic memory. This type of memory is about everything that we feel throughout our bodies. Anytime you make contact with something, the memory of that touch remains for a split second. This is haptic memory at work. It is a type of memory that is responsible for the temporary storage and processing of tactile information, such as the touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. That is the haptic memory, it plays an important role in our ability to sense and interact with the physical world. An example of the haptic memory may be when you touch a hot stove or fire, you immediately pull your hand away. The sensation of the heat and pain that you experience is processed in your haptic memory and it helps to create a reflex action that helps to protect your hand from further damage. The use of haptic memory can be an effective way to reinforce other type of memory such as visual or auditory memory by providing a physical tactile association that helps to solidify the memory in the brain. So it reinforces the visual and the auditory memory. Next is eidetic memory. It is also known as photographic memory. It is a rare ability to recall vivid and detailed images, sounds, or objects with great precision as if they were stored in a photograph or a video. That's why it is known as photographic memory. Individuals with eidetic memory can often remember things with exceptional clarity and detail even long after they were first perceived. They may be able to recall information with high accuracy, such as the lengthy passage of a text, the complex mathematical formulas, or intricate visual details of a scene. The eidetic memory is thought to be innate and it typically appears in early childhood, although it is extremely rare and it is difficult to measure objectively. So everyone doesn't have this eidetic memory. Only few people have. Some studies suggest that only 5% of the children possess eidetic memory, and even fewer retain this ability into adulthood. The eidetic memory is not same as having a perfect memory. Having a perfect memory, it is different. It is not necessarily associated with high level of intelligence or cognitive ability. Then olfactory memory. It is a type of memory that is based on the sense of smell. So we have seen visual, auditory, tactile, and now smell. It is the ability to remember and recall information based on past experience that are associated with particular sense or odor. An example of olfactory memory is when a person smells a particular food or perfume that reminds them of a specific time or place, like the smell of a freshly baked bread. That may evoke memories of childhood visit to your auntie's house or maybe your grandparents' house, depends. Another example can be when a person associates a particular smell with a strong emotion such as fear, excitement, or nostalgia. Sometimes the smell of smoke, it might trigger a sense of danger or panic in some person. The olfactory memory is thought to be closely linked to the emotional centers of the brain, which is why it can be such a powerful and evocative type of memory. That is why when we smell something, it will take us to our past time events. The olfactory memory can be more difficult to verbalize or describe. It is based on subjective sensory experience. Gustatory memory. It is a type of memory that is based on the sense of taste. So after smell, after the olfactory memory comes the taste. The gustatory memory. It is the ability to remember and recall information based on past experience that are associated with particular flavor or taste. For example, when a person tastes a particular food that reminds them of a specific time or place. For example, the taste of a particular dish. You may remind special occasion or you may remind the favorite restaurant where you had that dish. The gustatory memory is when a person associates a particular taste with strong emotion. Sometimes the memory of some taste, it is associated with strong emotions like pleasure, disgust, or nostalgia. The taste of a bitter medicine that you had in your childhood may evoke a feeling of discomfort or unpleasantness. Then, gustatory memory. It is closely linked to the sense of smell. Gustatory is the sense of taste and it is closely linked to the sense of smell. Because the aroma of the food, it is an important component of the taste. So it should come together, right? The taste and the smell. Then only it will be in your memory. Additionally, like olfactory memory, the gustatory memory is thought to be closely linked to the emotional centers of the brain, which is why it can be such a powerful and evocative type of memory. So the olfactory memory is an evocative. It evocates our past time memories, and likewise the gustatory memory is also closely linked to the emotional centers of the brain, and it also evocates our past time. Then let's see the importance of the sensory memory. It is an important aspect of the memory system because it allows us to process and make sense of the world around us. It is the first stage in the memory process. It serves as a filter for the vast amount of sensory information that hit our senses each day. One of the key functions of sensory memory is to provide a brief storage system for the sensory information. It allows the sensation or the sensory information to be processed and evaluated before being passed on to the next stage of the memory process. The sensory memory, it allows us to focus our attention on relevant information and to quickly discard the irrelevant or unnecessary information. Then, another important function of sensory memory is to provide a sense of continuity and coherence to our sensory experience. It helps to fill in the gaps between the discrete moments of perception that occur as we move through the world, allowing us to perceive the world as a seamless and continuous stream of information. Sensory memory is also important for learning and memory as it provides the raw material that is used to construct more complex memories. The information from sensory memory can be transferred to the short-term memory where it can be processed and organized in meaningful ways. And then eventually it is transferred into long-term memory where it can be stored for retrieval at a later time. So these are the importance of sensory memory. Sensory memory disorders. They are conditions that affect the ability to perceive, process and remember sensory information. First one is sensory processing disorder. This disorder affects how the brain processes the sensory information. It leads to difficulty in regulating and responding appropriately to the sensory input. People with this disorder may be hypersensitive or hypersensitive to the sensory stimuli, and it leads to the sensory overload or understimulation. Then amnesia. This is a condition in which a person is unable to remember the past events or experience. It can be caused by brain injuries, strokes, infections, or other medical conditions that affect the brain's ability to process and store memories. Then Alzheimer's disease. This is a degenerative brain disorder and it causes progressive memory loss and other cognitive impairments. In the early stages of Alzheimer's, the people may experience difficulty with short-term memory. Then comes autism spectrum disorder. The people with autism may have sensory processing issues. It can affect their ability to process and respond to sensory input from the environment. Then comes prosopagnosia. This is a disorder that affects the ability to recognize faces. People with this condition may have difficulty perceiving and remembering the facial features, and it leads to problems with social interaction and recognition. All these disorders can have significant impact on a person's quality of life. The treatment for these conditions may involve therapy, medication, or other interventions that is designed to improve the sensory processing, memory, and cognitive functioning. Now let's have a quick recap on what we have learned. We have learned what is sensory memory and the subtypes of sensory memory: iconic memory, echoic memory, haptic memory, olfactory memory, and gustatory memory. And we have learned the photographic memory known as the eidetic memory. Then the importance of sensory memory and the sensory memory disorders. So the sensory memory is an essential component of our memory system and it provides temporary storage for the sensory information. Sensory memory plays a key role in our ability to learn and remember. And it serves as a raw material for more complex memories. Hope you like this video. In the upcoming videos, we will cover the short-term memories and the long-term memories. So please like, share and subscribe. Thank you and keep smiling.